There is a quote by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe that says, "Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do." So knowing about COVID-19 is simply not enough to keep us safe. We must apply the necessary measures to protect ourselves. We also can't be just willing to work with guidelines being set by the authorities. We must do them, especially social distancing. Let's stand together to beat COVID-19. You're watching Jamaica Magazine, and I'm Adrian Atkinson.
By order, under the Disaster Risk Management Act, you must wear a mask in all public access places and in public transportation. If you wear a mask and I wear a mask, we are all safer.
We have another informative feature just for you.
It's been a real uphill road trying to coordinate with all of the agencies, working in collaboration with the JDF, PICA, Airports Authority, JUTC, JDF. They get double mention. Our healthcare workers and across agencies under the Ministry of National Security, Health and Wellness, and Foreign Affairs and Transport and Mining to ensure that we worked with not only TUI to get home their 84 crew members across 6 ships, but also 40 members of the Jamaican community, or rather Jamaicans who were stranded overseas, although we have included 2 elderly persons who were coming back with caregivers and were stranded. All of the safety procedures are followed: masks, gloves, etc. On hand. They had temperature and health checks before they got online. There were also health screening as part of the JAM COVID process. So you have to answer health questions before you're approved. And if you answer certain questions in a particular way, you would not be able to approve and you wouldn't be able to apply again for another 14 days. As a matter of fact, it was 124 approved, but I understand it's 120 landed. Oh, it's positive. They're happy to be home. They're just happy to be home. There are a couple families on board, a couple, 3 young children, 1 newborn baby. There's some elderly persons as well, along with the crew workers. So they're just really happy to be home. Students who were in challenging circumstances and were assisted back. So it's good to know that they're home.
Everybody wants to come home. People have to fill in the re-entry forms to be able to do that. And it's going to be a slow process, but everybody's happy to do so. And I think now people are realizing that we need to come together as a nation and build up through one country. Because when we are in other countries, we tend not to get the recognition that we deserve. We should all come back here and put not only resources, but also the brain. The brain is the key to success in other areas.
I just wanted to let you know that we're glad you're home, we're glad you're safe and sound, and we hope that you'll be comfortable in the arrangements that have been made for you. We're trying to ensure that we secure both you and your family's health, so the transportation arrangements that have been made for you, not going to allow you to do the usual hug-up and greeting that would normally take place. We'll have to postpone that until after quarantine, but we do hope that the arrangements that we've made for you on the North Coast will be sufficiently comfortable, even though I know you just can't wait to be home in your homes. And we just want to know that we wish you good health, continued good health, wish your families continued good health, and to just thank you for your understanding and your patience as we all work through this together. We know it's been tough. All right, so welcome home.
During this time of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, Literally every face-to-face meeting, conference, and class has been cancelled in favor of going online. However, we must remember to cater as best as possible to the deaf and hard of hearing. We implore members of the private sector and users of social media to use the services of a sign language interpreter where and when possible. For further information on how to assist the deaf and hard of hearing, contact the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities at 876-926-9376 or 876-618-1133. We ask all our stakeholders to play their part in catering for persons with disabilities. Take care of our persons with disabilities, not only today, but every single day. A message from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security.
Up next, a recap of the latest details in the fight against COVID-19.
I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey with the numbers. Jamaica, just to indicate, WHO has some transmission patterns. When we had no cases, sporadic cases, when we moved on the 10th of March to that, and then clusters of cases. The other phase, it's the community transmission, which may be imminent. So I must say, now, these are the numbers from this morning at 8 a.m. The numbers has changed by 4, but I think we can get the picture from what I have to say. 35 were imported, and 11 are local transmission. These are cases which we cannot link otherwise. And we have 171, which are contacts to confirm cases. 306 persons out of the 474 are related to that workplace cluster. We have tested 6,095, of which we have the positives. So how does this rank with other Caribbean countries? When we looked at 14 other Caribbean countries, as of yesterday's date, Jamaica ranked first with the total number of tests done. Yesterday was at 5,993. This was followed by the Cayman Islands at 3,050. But when we compare number of tests per population, Jamaica ranked 8. And first was Cayman Island at 46,000 per million. We came 8 out of 14. With respect to the persons, their health, as CMO said early on, we have no critically ill person right now from COVID. 2 are moderately ill, and we have more and more recovering each day. Most of the persons don't require hospitalization and are not necessarily isolated in hospital. So over time, we have seen the increasing cases, and take out the workplace cluster, we are on a straight line. When we have in that cluster, we are on exponential. So that was a surge, but that is not necessarily the true surge that we were thinking about. So when that surge occurred, we went to doubling every 5 days. Currently, we are moving towards 10-day doubling, or just about a 10-day doubling. So there's some flattening that is occurring. We look at the number of cases by their date of onset. Some persons would not have had symptoms, so we use the date of the test. And what we are seeing, it peaked around the 13th to 15th of April, and the numbers are decreasing currently. we looked at how did we find all these cases. The health department investigated all confirmed cases. They went and found 3,385 persons that were named. This is not including communities that have been surveyed. This method has been the most effective method, and we gained 390 cases from this method, many of which are asymptomatic, so we would not necessarily have found them. So we have been, that method is the method to pull out persons who may be infectious from the general population. So when we look at those cases that were contacts, the colors that are similar are the clusters of cases. So that orange would be those persons related to the workplace cluster. Looking at the age, for the most part, it's mostly the younger persons are involved. But when we take out the workplace cluster, then it's middle and older persons who are involved, because the other group is younger. The workplace cluster is very young. When we look at the sex distribution, mostly females, but when we take out the workplace cluster, it's mostly males, 56% males compared to 44% females. When we look at parishes, St. Catherine leads, followed by KSA. When we take out the cluster, KSA leads, followed by St. Catherine. So looking at the workplace cluster, this map gives you the workplace cluster and where these workers are found. So symptoms, what did persons have? Most persons had cough and fever. But something that we have seen, the loss of smell and the loss of taste have been seen. When we look at combinations, persons tend to have only a cough followed by cough and fever together. We have had 473 of the confirmed cases, about 42 had at least one of the top 6 comorbidities, and some had many. And the picture gives you the combinations that are there. So persons with asthma are coming out highly. So assessing community transmission may be silent. And what we want to do is find out what's happening in the community, because we don't want the COVID-19 to start screaming at us. So the method that we use to find these is respiratory infection surveillance. So those persons who may have a fever and a cough or a sore throat, we are testing those. And this particular surveillance system found 36 cases. So since week 11, we have been seeing cases from this method. So what it's saying to us is that there is some local transmission going on, even though it may not be large numbers yet, but something is happening. This means that we all have to be careful how we operate or how we act, because we don't know who may be having COVID positive. When we look at where we found these cases, the majority were in Kingston and St. Andrew, followed by St. Catherine, and also Portland, St. Mary, Clarendon, and the border of Manchester to Trelawney. Those are the areas of concern. So what are these numbers showing? That we are increasing the number of cases, clusters that are not related. We have COVID cases in all parishes except for Hanover. The number of cases identified through our respiratory surveillance, that is trying to find the community transmission, has been generally increasing since week 11. So the message to everybody, stay home unless you need to go out, essentials of life. And when you go out, stay at least 6 feet from others, wear a mask, remember to wash hands with soap and water frequently, and stay home if sick. Work from home where possible, and we all need to protect the vulnerable.
With the country experiencing more confirmed cases of COVID-19, it means the Ministry of Health and Wellness is testing more persons. A senior public health nurse explains the testing process being used.
We have online Dr. Michelle Hamilton, who is the director for the National Lab Services. Testing has been an issue. We've heard questions asked about the delays in testing. And I think it's important for the public to understand from start to finish, in a shortened version though, how we go about testing from the collection of samples through to reaching the lab, sorting, and the actual tests and results. Dr. Hamilton, how are you?
I am very well, sir. When samples are collected at the various points, they are transported to the lab. And at the lab, there are 3 phases: the pre-analytical, the analytical, and the post-analytical. In the pre-analytical phase, we log the sample into our system and we prepare the sample for testing. In the analytical phase, we do the actual testing. And in the post-analytical phase, we document the results that have come from the different samples, and of course, we then disseminate them. We give them out to the relevant persons. Now, it sounds simple to say, but we have to remember that we adhere to very strict international quality standards, and so there are checks and balances in each of these phases to ensure that we give not just a result, but an accurate result. So it often involves a team of individuals working together to cross-check at various points to ensure that everything is done in such a way that when you actually get your result, you can have confidence that this is an accurate representation of what is happening with the individual patient.
There have been some complaints around the delays in testing and test results. I mean, what in your mind has contributed to that? And are we on a path now to overcome that, given that giving a sample is an experience in and of itself? Getting the results and the anxieties around the wait can be quite traumatic.
Right.
Tell us about that backlog issue and how we have resolving it, if any.
We understand that once you have been tested, you very much want to see the result because you want to know, are you positive, are you negative? What has happened is that I am sure the country will be well aware that recently we had an upsurge in the number of cases, and that meant that we had to increase not only the testing of the persons who were found to be positive, but all of their contacts. So we had to do mass testing to determine who was positive and then follow up on the contacts because, of course, we are trying to contain the spread of the viral infection. Now, initially when there was the surge, the number of samples that were being collected exceeded our capacity to test on any given day. And so there was a buildup of the samples awaiting testing. But recently, the Ministry of Health has, through the National Laboratory Services, launched a new platform, the COBA 6800, that has boosted the testing capacity, and therefore we are currently now working through the backlog of samples and proceeding now to test incoming samples.
Tell us about the current test and what it aims to do, as opposed to the rapid antibody tests that we will introduce over time, and why the two. What's the distinction between the two, and why one may be more a mass test as opposed to the more targeted approach by the current one that we use?
The PCR test that we are using is a diagnostic test. So it identifies the presence of the actual virus in the individual. So if you have the infection, you will have the virus in your body, and we will be able to detect the virus using the PCR technique. That's the current technique. The antibody tests are based upon the body's reaction to the virus. So when your body is invaded by any kind of foreign material, in this case a virus, it builds up antibodies. But these antibodies take time to develop. So the antibody tests are tests that will only give us a result, a positive result, after some time. So if we want to catch the infection early, then we go for the presence of the virus itself before the antibody builds up. After we have had the virus circulating in any given population, and we want to look, for example, at how many people may have been infected by the virus, then we could proceed to look at antibody tests. But they are going to tell us that you had an infection, because what you are measuring is not the presence of the infectious agent. You are measuring the effect that it produced on the body. So it's two different approaches. If you want to contain the infection, the spread of the infection, as we are doing now, you want to catch it as early as possible and limit its spread. So you don't want to wait, the weeks that you may have to wait to get an antibody response from the body to say, yes, the infection was there. Because in that time, you would have had COVID and could possibly have been transmitting the virus to others. So we want at this time to go in quickly, find out who is infected using the PCR method, and try to stem the infection.
Thank you.
Spread of the infection in the population.
Thanks, Doc. And the final one is, how has your experience as head of the testing facility in the country under COVID been, both you and your staff? I mean, this is more a personal, human capacity question. I mean, what has it been like? The workload, the stress level,
Sir,
how have you been able to manage that process?
The workload has increased tremendously because, as you would be aware, the fact that we have COVID does not mean that we don't have the other things that we would monitor routinely. So for us to utilize our staff for tests for COVID, it is an added test that we are mounting. And I would like to say that the team has risen to the occasion. We have a team of consultant microbiologists, we have medical technologists, we have laboratory technical assistants, we have everybody, the drivers who transport the sample. Everybody has come together and decided to go the extra mile. So persons are working longer hours. We literally have now shifts working on a 24-hour basis, whereas most of the persons would have been working on an 8-hour basis, because we understand that the country is dependent upon us at this time to be able to give them the results that they need. So it has been a time of increased activity, and there are times when you feel the pressure of the work, but it's also been a wonderful time when it has brought out the best, in that instead of running from the work, we have decided to put our shoulders to the plow and really go for it on behalf of all of us in this nation. So it's been a difficult time in terms of pressure, but it's been a good time in terms of the overall experience.
Dr. Hamilton, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you. Thank you for this expose on air. and thank you and the team for the work that you've been doing. Very happy to hear that we're making progress in terms of the expanded testing capacity. And I think the distinction between antibody testing, rapid test kits, and testing for the virus itself is an important and useful distinction. And just to say to the country, we're moving into the antibody stage. It is a phased approach. It's not that we are late. It's just that that time is just coming. Thank you very much.
That's right.
And
Yes,
keep up
sir.
the good work.
Homeschooling and online classes have been the new norm for students and teachers during this COVID-19 period. Adjustments to this format by some students might be slow, but for those involved in the process, parents, guardians, teachers, let us reassure these students that in spite of the temporary change, they can learn.
As the CEO of the National Parenting Support Commission, I want to speak specifically to parents to affirm your children. A, acknowledge. In other words, recognize your child's importance. F, friend. Understand that there must be mutual affection, that bonding is absolutely important. It must be encouraged. F, favor. Your children desire your approval and your support. When they meet your expectations, do not just ignore them, but support and encourage them. I, influence. In a time when some of our influences could be called into question, we need to ensure that as parents, we become the most important influence in the lives of our children. We want parents to get involved in the lives of their children. We want them to lead by example, and we want you to encourage your children's dreams and aspirations. R, respect. Respect is something that we must teach our children. As adults, I want to caution, though, that is also something we must earn. We must not only expect respect to be reciprocated because we're adults, we must show it. We must model for our children what it means to respect. Motivate. Be your child's cheerleader. Speak positively over his or her life. As a parent, learn to celebrate effort, especially when they're in school and not just grades. That's very important. When your child is doing his or her best and putting out effort, encourage it and support him or her.
This is where our journey ends, but only for today. Do join us again tomorrow when we'll bring you another informative program. In the meantime, stay connected via our website, jis.gov.jm. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm or via tweet at JIS News. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.